hello to a special edition of the Castle of Horror. This is Jason Henderson, the host of the Castle of Horror podcast and publisher at Castle Bridge Media. I'm talking to Tony Salvaggio, our writer for Castle of Horror, who is representing us at the Fantastic Fest in Austin, Texas, which runs until the 29th of September. So today we're going to talk about, Tony, welcome.
Oh, hey, howdy.
Howdy. We're going to talk about the first batch of genre films that you've seen. So let's get right into it. I've been seeing the trailers for this for like a month, but what's going on with Smile?
So I was really impressed with Smile. Paramount's giving it everything. They're really pulling out all the stops, and it was a great opening night movie. Deals with a lot of psychological horror. The smile in it is a very disturbing smile. For anybody who's dealt with any kind of mental illness or had friends, relatives with mental illness, I think this might be kind of triggering, but it also has a lot to say about how we treat people with mental illness, what we think about people with mental illness. There's a lot of dialogue about that person's crazy, that kind of and it deals with how we deal with that trauma. There's a lot of really interesting generational trauma as well, and some truly disturbing visuals in it. It has a lot of homage that I think fans of the podcast, fans of horror, will pick up on, but it's not kind of winking at you so much as it is like, this is cool, did you see that?
It's just part of that genre, part of that conversation.
Yeah, and
I mean,
there are some parts where you're like, oh, I know where that's actually kind of clever.
I mean, it sure looks a lot like The Ring when you look at the trailer, right?
It has that. Some people have been comparing it to It Follows, kind of,
Yeah.
But it's different. It's different from the trailer as well. I was surprised. Sosie Bacon, who plays Dr. Rose Cotter, really nails it. And it's a lot. It's female is woman driven. She goes through all of the things. It centers around her primarily, and her dealing with everything that makes the movie what it is, plot wise. It's got some really disturbing visuals. They did a really good job. The soundtrack in my head, and I hope this doesn't sound too there's the painter Francis Bacon, who has all these really disturbing paintings, and the soundscape has such a disorienting feel that I felt like that was the cinematic version of those paintings, where you're just some art is meant to affect you and constantly kind of gnaw at you to kind of jangle your nerves. And the longer you stare at it, in this case hear it, the more it kind of does that. They do a lot visually with angles and how they turn things, and I thought that was really clever as well.
So
it was
debuted
kind of based on a short as well.
Well, I just wanted to mention this debuted at Fantastic Fest, but Paramount has been, for a horror movie, Paramount has been promoting this thing a lot. Like they promoted it before Top Gun with a long teaser. I know that in Austin they're doing a major marketing campaign. So I mean, think about it. Like, I just saw Barbarian, right? And have you seen any ads for Barbarian?
Oh, well, it's bizarre, and the director Parker Finn was talking about how they trusted him with turning the short into this. And then he was even kind of like, wow, you guys are going to promote a horror movie like this. This is because they're really pushing it. And I think that's great for horror. Right?
It is. It absolutely is great for horror. Yes. And I'm very and I wasn't like
no.
I'm just shocked. I'm just saying, like, Barbarian's really good. You didn't hear much about it. This is really very special. Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
happy that people, and I think fans of horror, I think it's going to do really well for even fans who aren't don't go to horror movies every time they come out. I think this bridges that gap and allows. It is really disturbing, like I said. I think for some, if you've had anyone who who's close to you dealing with mental illness, it may hit you in ways. I caution, but it also, I mean, it says there's a lot of subtext about how we deal with that. And, again, the horror being able to kind of say these things. I found that part fascinating. And even dealing with, you have our lead, and how many times people tell especially women, like, "Oh, you should smile more."
Yeah.
Well, you don't want this smile, but it deals kind of with all of that. How does that smile, what is that fakeness in our society? Oh no, I'm fine, but you're not, that kind of stuff.
Excellent.
I was really impressed, and I think that it's going to give horror fans a lot to think about and to watch.
We're definitely gonna have to cover it on the show. I want to move
Yeah,
on because I know that you need to get back to the floor.
yeah.
So Shin Ultraman
So
is
Shin, yeah,
what is
go
that?
ahead.
What is Shin
Shin
Ultraman?
Ultraman is the movie kind of retelling of Ultraman, and it is, Ultraman, kaiju, man in the suit. In the original Ultraman, Ultraman is part alien. He can turn into. Oversimplifying, but he can turn into
Okay.
Ultraman for a limited amount of time using this thing called a beta capsule. In this, aliens, kaiju have been coming up, and it's also got nods to, I think I've recommended it, Ultra Q.
Mm-hmm.
So Ultra Q started, and it's kind of, I tell people, Outer Limits meets X Files
Mm-hmm.
in black
Yes.
and white, at the time. And this Shin Ultraman's great. It's got all the kaiju action you would want. Different politically than Shin Godzilla, if you're expecting that. But there is a nod at the beginning, and even better, there's all these fan nods to things in Ultraman and Shin, Ultra Q, which I thought was amazing. Like, just, if you are a fan of Ultraman, you'll see these things and go, "Oh, that okay, you didn't have to do that, but you did," right?
Wow.
So this deals with, kaiju attacks are increasing, and Ultraman blasts onto the scene, and you have a group of investigators, a squad who, they're there to fight kaiju, and then they have to figure out, is Ultraman a good guy? Is he helping them? Is he not? And there's a lot of kaiju battles, a lot of great special effects, a ton of nods to fans of the series, and a little bit of weighty things. And they do some great things because basically they're allowed to do nods to when people go, "Oh, I wonder why this is," because at the beginning they just go, "Well, kaiju only happen in Japan, so we're the ones dealing with it."
Mm-hmm.
Like, so if anybody asks, like, why is it that, giant monsters, why is it only in Japan? Well, they just throw that line out and go, "Yeah, well, for whatever reason, kaiju only happened in Japan, so moving
Huh.
on."
That is
Like,
I love that. I love that.
so they set up all these rules that are kind of the best, no prize kind of rules, where people go, "What about this?"
Yeah.
And they continue to kind of deliver on that. And there's a little bit of like detective work, and them trying to figure out. So it's a worthy successor, in my opinion, to the series. I had a blast. This is one of those where I wanted to see this. I ordered, pizza and a soda to kind of get that nostalgia
Mm-hmm.
of youth. And I had a blast. I can't wait. It's that one's also on Fantastic Fest at Home.
Mm-hmm.
And not to, try to oversell it, but if this sounds like something and you want to see it early, Fantastic Fest at Home has it. So I want to, I want to spread that word, because you too can, if your Ultraman's your thing, if kaiju are your thing, I think there's a lot here that's just really great. Um, Awesome. All the actors are great. There's just so many little visual bits that, when they tease one character coming in, and their all their interactions. Yeah, I think it's great. It's, it messes with the mythology a little bit, but that's kind of expected from a Shin Ultraman. Meaning, it's kind of a
Well,
side Ultraman,
yeah, I was
new
gonna say
Ultraman, new Ultraman.
we just had the Shin Godzilla
Yeah.
a couple years ago, so this seems to be what strikes me as funny is I look at the images that I find
Hmm.
online of Shin Ultraman, and it is, other than that he's quite tall, it looks so much like the '60s Ultraman, and
That soundtrack. So it's like such a combo of the 60s. But then there's some bits, and I don't want to give away, because some of the bits
mhm,
are great. It deals with a kind of 60s of the future, but we have all the internet things that we
huh,
have, all the issues, all the, I'll look this up, I'll Google this, and
hmm,
you have one agent who just doesn't want to even deal with that, and it goes back, and the soundtrack is full on from the era.
huh.
Like, there's updated stuff, but the soundtrack in general, it even starts with some Ultra Q style music, and nods to that. I think it's a great mix of old and new.
That sounds fantastic. Okay, we need to move on. So, what about you watched a film called Blood Relatives.
Oh, this Noah Sagan acts and directs this movie, and a very small cast, it's a big hearted, smaller budget film,
Hmm,
definitely indie film, but looks amazing, like looks great. It's it's a tale of a vampire driving around in his barracuda,
hmm,
just going from place to place, wandering, and ends up that he has a daughter.
huh.
And what do you do when you all of a sudden have a half vampire daughter? Because she can go around the sun, and him dealing with figuring out, what he's going to do as a dad and how that works, and then what are they going to do with the vampire things they have to do. It's got so much heart. It has a lot of humor. That was kind of the point. There's tons of heart. It's just if you like Near Dark, it's kind of that. Plus, I think he said Paper Moon was an
I was gonna
influence.
say the leather jackets and the driving and stuff does remind you a lot of Near Dark, and,
Yeah.
but it's a comedy. I didn't know anything about it until you mentioned it. So
Oh,
is it
I
did it
cannot
premiere?
wait.
Did
Yeah,
it
yeah,
premiere at
yeah,
Fantastic Fest?
yeah.
That's amazing.
I
Okay.
can't wait. Noe Sagan's great. He's been a Fantastic Fest regular for a while as well. It's nice when there's regulars that you see at the fest and they bring their films or they're in films and are just hanging out and you're all kind of there. That's
Yeah.
one thing I love about Fantastic Fest is you're just there for movies.
Mhm.
It's less about the celebrity of the thing, although there is a little bit of that. But in general, everybody's just there to hang out and watch films and enjoy films. But this, I was so happy after coming out of this and just wanted to tell the world,
Huh,
it's got a great soundtrack. It's this idea of anybody, like I think Drew will enjoy it for the near darkness of it, and I think our fans will as well.
hmm,
I think it touches on, you're a dad. I think
yeah.
you're gonna find, you and Julia will also find that it's very enjoyable in that way. And it's in this vampire, he's Jewish, and so he's he sometimes has this outmoded like, hey, I'm gonna use these Yiddish words, but
Uh-huh.
he looks like this, kind of greaser near dark. So it's like the economy of that is also great.
That's wonderful. Yeah.
I I just and their interaction, is just so awesome. He and his daughter and kind of dealing with figuring out. I mean, if it's just a movie about, hey, now I now have a daughter, that you could do a lot with that, and it's been done. But the fact, like, oh, not only are you growing up, but you're growing up with a vampire as a
Mhm.
vampire with all these vampire needs as well and questions, vampire questions.
That's great.
It's really, the script is really smart and funny, and I don't want to give too much more away because I think people want to discover. It's a dichotomy of of doing reviews, right? You want to tell
No, no,
people
of
and get
course.
excited, but you also want people to discover it because, and I think there's a lot of discovery. It's humorous where it
It's,
needs to be, it's poignant where it needs to be, and I think that balance is handled so well.
I was just thinking Noah Sagan, and that's spelled Segan. So he's
Yeah,
directed this film. This is a Jewish vampire movie in a sense. And
yeah,
I just wanted to mention that the funny thing is that is officially a mini trend because there's another book coming out called Don't Want to Be Your Monster, which is about a Jewish vampire. So I think we might be on the cusp of a
I
whole
mean,
bunch of Jewish vampires, which would be cool.
I'm here for that because you can. I mean,
Absolutely.
you can do
Yeah.
so much with vampires in general.
We should have as many vampires as there are cultures, honestly.
Sure.
All right, that sounds cool. Okay, and what about Venus? So this is something else. I don't
Oh,
even know what this is. I've never
oh
heard of this.
man. So, this is another director bringing his film to Fantastic Fest. If you liked Wreck,
Hmm.
then you've seen his movies. And this one was, I can't give away. I mean, this visually just disturbing across the board. Again, I don't want to do too much of like, oh, it's this, but if you're a fan of things like Suspiria,
Hmm.
for example, and you want a modern a modern experience that wasn't the remake, like this brings some of those feelings, I think,
Hmm.
into it. It has its kernel of story comes from Witch House, Lovecraft's.
Yep.
Dreaming of the Witch, but it's like just the seed of it. It begins with a techno dancer who steals some stuff from her club, has problems getting out, and goes to her sister's flat, which is, on the really not great side of town.
Mhm.
And there's something in this high-rise apartment, this 10-story apartment, that is not right.
Mm.
Is it the neighbors? Is it, something upstairs? She's estranged from her sister, so there's again some generational, some family trauma. She's taken over, she has to deal, she's never met her niece. So when it begins, things are so traumatic that her sister's trying to leave the apartment and gets stopped by her by Lucia, our main protagonist, coming in, who needs help. And so it deals, there's weirdness, and you slowly discover what's, the strangeness. And Rec kind of had that high rise kind of thing going on as well,
Mhm.
but this takes it in a totally different way. It harkens to, like I said, some Argento or some, more witchy supernatural things. And boy, and it's just striking. Like, the production design is amazing.
And this is a Spanish film, correct?
Yes. Yes.
And is that one last thing, because I know we gotta segue into getting out of here, because I know you have to get literally back to the show itself. But that's one of the aspects of Fantastic Fest, right? Where you're watching you're watching horror movies all week, but many of them are Spanish, European, Asian.
Oh yeah,
You're yeah.
yeah, and we talked about that a little bit about the world cinema. So you're seeing, I saw Venus. I saw a, foreign Unicorn Wars, which is a kind of heavy. Actually, ended up being kind of a heavy war allegory.
Hmm.
It looks happy about teddy bears and unicorns, but it's heavy.
Mhm.
So you see all
Yeah.
these things from all over the world. I'm gonna be watching more stuff from all over. I watched a Malaysian film last night, a horror movie, as well, and
You're
it's
gonna watch,
just
I know you're not gonna report on all of them, but we've talked about 4 films today, for instance. You're gonna watch how many movies planned?
probably around 36,
Goodness.
something like that. Like, and depending on how many screeners. So in between 30 and 40 is usually
Mhm.
what I tell people when
That's
I,
unbelievable. That is unbelievable.
depending on if I have to report on things, or take a time off, or something comes up,
Yeah.
but somewhere between 30 and 40 movies by the end of the week. And then I try to catch up on the screeners. If there's something I missed I want to report on, I'll try to catch up, and then Fantastic Fest at home. So by the end of it, I think I've reached, one time I reached like 45, I think was my, or 48 was my
Wow.
top. But which a lot of people are like, I don't know how you do that. But
It's
but getting back
unbelievable.
to
Really cool.
Venus, it's striking film. I hope it gets wide release. Fans of our, again, horror fans are in for just an amazing treat. It's beautifully shot, but that beauty is horrific, right? Like, it's grimy and dark where it needs to be. And and it has dance, because she's a techno dancer, and there's bits of dance throughout, scattered through it. So it's, Lovecraft meets supernatural horror meets dance.
Nice. That sounds
And
that I
it's
can't get away from the Suspiria connection there.
it's I mean, I
Like
you
yeah.
people may see it. It struck me because there's, when you see it, you'll see it. And it's interesting too, because when you watch this, they do all the Q&As with the director, and the director even sat in our theater for a while. I was in a smaller theater, and they simulcast the Q&As. And it's interesting because sometimes these premieres are where a director or the cast may see it for the first time with an audience. And so there was a thing at the end where he goes, "Oh, well, that visual, I envisioned it this way, but now that I watch it, it's like even more disturbing. Like, I didn't
Hmm.
mean it this way."
That's
And
really
that's those are
interesting.
the kinds of things that you get out of a cool festival like Fantastic Fest. It's why I recommend it.
Yeah.
If you're able to go to a cool fest like this, it's why I go every year. It's a creative recharge for me. But I'm really hope Venus gets a wide release, because it ticked all these boxes of things, and it was unexpected. Like, I was like, oh, that sounds cool. And I didn't, I went in just kind of fresh, and you
Yeah.
come out like, whoa, those images are now in my head. This is something like, oh, you took these influences. Because it's also a little bit of crime movie, because she's stolen something from this club, and the gangsters are after her. So, and how that and deals with the really sometimes surreal and brutal imagery that it brings. So yeah, it's so far, I'm only like 2 days in, and I've seen enough movie for a while, and I'm gonna go watch, 30 more movies.
Fantastic.
And
Oh, well, Fantastic Fest. The,
yeah.
well, okay, Tony, we'll check in a couple of days on the next, batch of, genre films that you've been seeing, um, and
Oh,
this is great.
I
Yeah.
I do wanna have, let's go with the recommendation format.
Mm.
I saw a really when this is the definition of when you say taut political thriller, or it has the action in it, called Hunt. And wow, is it, 125 minutes of just action and
Huh.
twists, and it's set during the 80s. It's oof. And it and one of the actors that was in Squid Game.
Yeah.
It is, if you want political thriller and action, wow, Hunt brings it all. I wish this is another movie. I was like, oh, I wish Jason was here watching
No,
this.
I'm a huge fan
We
of
would both
political
be
thrillers.
discussed. And
Totally.
it's got so many just great action scenes and twists that, like, you're constantly trying to figure it out. Um, a lot to deal with the interplay between North and South Korea, which actually I'm gonna go see a repertory screening of JSA today. Is it today? I think it's today. Today or
What's
tomorrow.
of, GSA?
Yeah, JSA, Joint Security Area.
Oh, okay, very good.
And so, but Hunt is my recommendation because it's not, directly horror for us, but whew, is it just so good? Just, and it doesn't feel long. It didn't feel long to me. Even it, but because it just
Even at
keeps
2
it,
hours.
yeah, it just keeps pushing it. I highly recommend it. But yeah, thanks for, those are the recommendations I have now. Of course, 30 movies later, I'll have some more.
Sure.
We'll be hopefully doing this in between. But I always recommend, if you can, check out Fantastic Fest at home if any of this sounds pretty cool.
Mm,
I don't mean to oversell it. Just I like sharing these movies, and I think we can all kind of get into that. We have a means to do that and see some films you may not see anywhere else, and that's what I really enjoy, because I don't know when Venus is going to come out. Smile, we're going to see soon enough, because Paramount. Shin Ultraman should be out and about as well. But and Blood Relatives, I hope. I'm thinking it's Shutter, so I'm guessing it will be on Shutter. I don't have the date for that currently, but watch for it if you're a fan of vampires, near dark family family comedy. And just overall, just such heart. You can tell, the director just put everything into it, and directed and acted in it, which is its own challenge. But the
very
Q&A
cool.
was great, and the cast is fantastic. I even saw, that's the other thing, a good friend of mine who also worked on John Golson, who also worked on Drew's Halloween Man, is in Blood Relatives. Like, so he
Really?
comes up on screen. I'm like, hey, it's John. Like, that's cool, awesome. John's there. John's up, right in front of me, huge. 10 times larger than life, or whatever.
That's
So
fantastic.
that's really great. So I do recommend. Thanks for having me be kind of, the on the spot reporter for
Yeah,
this, and
you're our man in
we'll be talking
Havana
more and more.
in
Yeah,
Austin.
exactly.
Alright, well, have a fantastic Saturday and go kill it.
Awesome.
I can't wait to hear what you run into. Thank
Awesome.
you,
Take
Tony.
care.
Bye.